السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. In the previous session we spoke about the adhan and how it is a very powerful means for us to prepare ourselves for Salah. And we talked about the importance of pondering the meaning of the adhan. And again, this will help to prepare our mindset before we enter into Salah. Today, we'll mention a couple of other tips before Salah. One is answering the call of nature, removing any sort of distractions a person may have. So, for example, a person may be hungry, and this hunger may distract them from Salah. This is why the Prophet ﷺ has said, "La salata bi hadrati at-ta'am." Salah should not be performed when the food has been presented. وَلَا وَهُوَ يُدَافِعُهُ الْأَخْبَثَانِ, nor when one is fighting the urge to go to the bathroom. The Prophet ﷺ also said that if the dinner is served and the iqamah for Salah has been given, then start with the dinner. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari. So this is an important principle, and from this we can extract a general idea that if there's something that's going to be distracting us before our Salah, it's better to remove that distraction and then to start the Salah, even if that means delaying the Salah or sacrificing something which is generally important. Like, for example, praying Salah with Jama'ah in the masjid, for example, is generally very important. However, if your mind is not going to be concentrated, then the Prophet ﷺ actually taught us just eat first. Because imagine that's how important concentration is to Allah Ta'ala, that generally Salah with Jama'ah, inshallah, we're going to talk about this in an upcoming session, about how important praying Salah with Jama'ah in the masjid is. However, it's concentration is so important that Allah Ta'ala teaches us, through the Prophet ﷺ, that sometimes it's okay to even sacrifice Salah with Jama'ah if it means that you will be more concentrated. Right? Of course, again, we don't take this as a general rule, and some people might claim that, I can concentrate better when I pray alone. That's not a valid excuse. But what I'm trying to say is, the fact that we should remove any sort of inner desires or inner distractions that may take away from our concentration in Salah is something which is established from this hadith. But one point to note also is that people also take this hadith and they basically think that we can also fill ourselves up, and we have to have a whole feast before we start our Salah. That's not necessarily the case. The ulama write that you eat just enough for you to be not distracted. So just remove that intense hunger. And then after that, you can come back and eat properly. So it's very possible for us that we can just take like 5-10 bites. Make sure that, okay, the hunger is gone. You've tasted the food. You won't be distracted by, how's that food taste? Then you go and you join the Salah. Usually we can catch the Salah by that point. And then afterward, we can come and fully finish the meal properly. So it's not that you have to finish the entire meal. Also, it's important for us to note that we shouldn't use this hadith as an excuse to miss Jama'ah, especially on a consistent basis. That our meals always happen to start at like around 8:55. Oh, it's 8:55. Isha's at 9. Oh, I guess I have to eat first. And then we're constantly every single day missing Isha Salah with Jama'ah. We should plan our meals in such a way that it doesn't miss it, right? I mean, you have stories of the Salaf, inshallah, we're going to go through some of them soon. Stories of the pious people of the past who didn't miss Salah with Jama'ah in the masjid for decades, years and years on end. They didn't miss Salah in the masjid. They also knew this hadith as well, but they just made sure that they had their meals outside of those times. This is talking about a scenario which, for example, you're hungry and it just happens that you were served this meal this time, and it just happened that it happened to be Salah time. So just talking about that type of scenario. So Imam Munawi rahimahullah explains that the above narrations indicate that it is more important and virtuous to pray with presence of heart rather than to pray at the beginning of the prayer time. Abu Darda radiallahu anh says that an insightful person attends to what he needs to before Salah so that he may enter the Salah with his heart unburdened. And interestingly, it's even mentioned in one hadith regarding Salatul Jumu'ah that if a person does ghassala wa ghtasala, that a person basically, there's different interpretations of what this means. According to some ulama, this means that the person engaged in intercourse with their spouse then the reward for Jumu'ah is multiplied. Now, what's the wisdom behind this? It could be because this helps one to lower their gaze when they're on their way to the masjid, and thus aids the concentration. And in general, the distraction that a person may have in their mind from not engaging in this act before could distract them in their salah as well. Whereas once one engaged in this act with their spouse, then this actually decreases the distraction and allows them to concentrate better. So this just goes to highlight how answering the call of nature before salah is important. And I've similarly mentioned regarding the bathroom, to the extent that the ulama have written that it's actually makruh tahrim and is severely disliked for you to have to use the bathroom and be praying your salah. You should take care of, even if it means you miss your salah sometimes in jama'ah, not completely miss your salah, but miss your salah with jama'ah, then you should do so. You should use the bathroom and then come. Again, with the caveat that we shouldn't make it a habit on purpose that keep on missing jama'ah. Oh, I have to use the bathroom, just leave it. But at the same time, it's important to keep this in mind that when you have to use the bathroom, you can't concentrate on anything, and everyone knows this through experience. One more tip, inshallah, we'll go through today. We're going to try to cover more tips now because we have a lot to cover and a few days left, inshallah, and also the last 10 days, so it's more opportunity for us to act upon it, inshallah. One more tip for us to gain more zeal in our ibadah and concentration is to be inspired by the pious people. Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, he mentions a powerful thing. He says sometimes you find yourself lazy and you're trying to force yourself to be in ibadah and concentrating in your ibadah, but your heart is just not in it. Your nafs is not letting you really focus. So what's the cure to that? So he said the cure to that is that you be in the company of the pious people who you see they work so hard in their ibadah and they're so engaged and they're so focused in their ibadah. Just being in the company of such people, seeing the way they worship Allah, propels you to do the same. And you will see a literal effect in your own salah. You will see that you will start praying that same way as well. And then he says, if you cannot find someone like that, if you looking around you, you don't really see anybody who has that level of worship, then try to read the stories of the pious people of the past, Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the Prophets ﷺ, and the pious before them, because that's the basically that's the alternative. If you cannot find the physical company of pious people, then read about the pious. That's like being in their company. And he mentioned some examples of some of the pious. For example, somebody would say that whenever I would have some deficiency or lapse in my worship, I would start feeling lazy. I would go to Muhammad ibn Wasi', one of the great pious people of the past, and take note of his exertion and worship, and that would be enough to motivate me for ibadah for an entire week. And it's something, alhamdulillah, I've also experienced, alhamdulillah, having had the experience of spending some time with some pious people. You see that whenever you spend some time with them, your ibadah completely transforms and changes for some time. Of course, it wears off over time. That's why being in constant company of the pious, as much as you can, whenever you get an opportunity to be in the company of such pious people, is one of the greatest gifts a person can get. And if you ever find someone, then you should make an effort to be in their company. And in particular, I just want to mention one story and I'll end off with that. There was one specifically a pious individual I had heard of. They lived in a far town in kind of like you would say the boondocks in South Africa, a very remote area in South Africa, hours away from where I was when I was studying in South Africa. However, I got an opportunity to go and travel there, so I took a friend and we went and visited that sheikh. And we just asked him for general advice, and he specifically gave us advice regarding his salah. And even the way he would lead the salah, it was so powerful. He had so much khushu', and the salah was long, and he knew that there was nobody behind him because he knew the people of that town were very few. He knew there's not going to be anybody who's in a rush. Otherwise, generally, we know that salah from the masjid is supposed to be shorter. But he knew there's nobody going to be rushed, so he would have long salahs with full concentration and khushu', and he would give so much devotion and importance to salah with jama'ah. And he gave such beautiful advices regarding khushu' and salah. So literally for a whole week or 2 weeks, I could feel the effect of being in the company of that sheikh, and my salah was a completely different salah than it was. So the point is that we should try to be in the company of the pious, inshallah, and this will have a great effect on our concentration in salah as well. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all tawfiq and grant us khushu' and salah. Wa akhu da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.